Welcome to today's Learn How to Rock Your Scorecard webinar. I am Sean Ryan. I'm the Vice President of Product Strategy here at BCC Software, and I will be your moderator for today's webinar. And let's get started. I'm going to start by introducing today's presenters. With me here in the room, I have Chris Lien, who, in addition to being the President of BCC Software, is a well-known and regarded industry expert, including most recently as the chair of the Postmaster General's Mailer Technical Advisory Committee. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks, Sean. Glad to be here.
And in a quick switch, we've got John Zanito from DX Marketing. You may have seen us advertised with Steve Owens, who had something come up last minute, wasn't able to join us, but John has graciously offered to join us. John is the data technician at DX Marketing, which probably undersells his experience a little bit. He, in addition to his most recent 5 years with DX Marketing, spent around about 25 years with the United States Postal Service, and he is an expert in all things related. Welcome, John.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. All right. So I'm going to get us going here in just a second, but we want to get a quick barometer of the attendees that we've got with us. So we're going to launch that first survey question right now. Really what we want to know is just, have you had an opportunity yet to take a look at your scorecard, and how often, or are you just getting into it, or are you completely unfamiliar? And again, that's going to help us to get an indication of what sorts of attendees we have on the call today. Leave it open for just another 15 or 20 seconds, give everybody an opportunity to get their votes in. All right, looks like we're just about there. So let's go ahead and get that closed. And as those results pop up, I'm going to turn us over here now to Chris Lien, who is going to take a moment and speak to those just a little bit, and then get us started with a quick background reminder of what the scorecard is. Chris?
All right. Well, thanks, Sean. And I want to begin by thanking all of you for attending the webinar today. I know there's a lot of different web seminars and content and information out there about the scorecard, including the guide, USPS Guide to Streamline Mail Acceptance for Letters and Flags Reporting. It's 187 pages long. So if you're having trouble sleeping at night, that's certainly an opportunity for you. We do have a summarized web seminar that BCC put together and a document that kind of summarizes that. But I thought we would take a different take with today's session and talk about the scorecard from the context of an opportunity for you to better understand your mailing, your customers' mailing, and perhaps give you some tips on how to improve the overall process around the scorecard. And in so doing, you're going to rock your scorecard with that. So that's kind of the setting behind this. I want to thank John from DX Marketing being on the webinar today. We're going to hear from John a little bit later on. Great progressive company, really leading the pack in understanding the scorecard. So John's got some fantastic tips to share with you as well as we get into that. I'm just going to start here, though, really from the beginning, and just because I noticed on the survey questions that we did that, and that's part of the reason why we do these live surveys, is just to get a feel for the audience. And it looks like most of you really haven't been looking at your scorecard yet, but you're beginning to do that. And that's a good time to do it, because this is real, folks. The Postal Service is really, beginning October 1st, going to begin measuring how well you're preparing mailings, and they're going to be shifting into what I'll call a post-acceptance world. They're going to take your mail, and then they're going to assess you any deficiencies a month after the fact. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the scorecard. The scorecard is really important for the Postal Service. It provides a quantitative measurement or assessment of mail quality. It's going to report that quality across a number of different areas, and it represents the collective measurement that the Postal Service is doing as your customers or your mail is being scanned and processed and working through the United States Postal Service's network. So it's going to be scanned with the full service IMB pieces, mail pieces you're putting on there. So the full service IMB pieces are what's going to be measured, and it is the full service discount that's at stake. So if you're not complying with the tolerances that the Postal Service has, they can assess you a month after the mailing has gone out for an amount of money that's equal to the full service discount on those cumulative pieces as a result of what's being done over that month. What the scorecard contains for you is, again, is quantitative things for you to be able to take a look at and understand. It includes things like the mailer profile, Where do you fit in the supply chain with the Postal Service? Are you preparing the mailing for somebody else? Is it your mail? Things like that. We'll talk about a little bit more about that in a moment. Electronic verification. They're going to measure how well you're doing in preparing the barcode itself. Is it unique? There's e-induction. Where am I drop shipping my mail? How is it being inducted into the Postal Service's system? We're moving away from the paper 8125 to an electronic methodology for acceptance of mail, and that's what e-induction is about. It's going to measure seamless acceptance. That's a program that continues to move forward and progressive. More mailers are coming on to the seamless acceptance program. Some of you may already be in the pilot or working with the Postal Service on that. Seamless acceptance is a different piece of this, but it's still related to it. So look at what's happening this fall, again, October 1st, as the beginning of a continuance of the Postal Service moving towards this improved measurement of mail preparation and then the assessments that go with it in a post-acceptance world. And then finally, single-piece mail exclusions. They're not measuring certain types of mail pieces, non-automation, basic IMB, single-piece. They're not able to measure that as part of the scorecard. But we want to make sure that you understand that. And again, based on the survey question, it looks like a lot of you are really still just beginning to get your minds wrapped around how this is going to work. Next slide. So I mentioned before, this is really going to happen, folks. The Postal Service has, they set certain dates earlier in the year, and it kept slipping in true fashion. No, maybe we're going to do it. Oh, we'll wait. Now we're at a point where the Postal Service really does believe, and I have to agree with them, again, based on my relationship with the Postal Service, both as an advocate for our customers in the industry, as president of BCC, and working with MTAC, but also through MTAC, understanding what's going on in some of the task teams. Task Team 23 in particular was formed to measure how well the industry is doing and the Postal Service's systems are doing to better prepare for what's going to happen on October 1st. So it is real. The Postal Service has notified the industry. So beginning October 1st, they'll start measuring how well the mail was prepared. That measurement for this initial part is going to go through midnight on November 11th, and then on the 12th is when they're going to start sending out these assessments. Now, you may have already received an email on September 12th, in fact. Okay, so, excuse me, I think I might have said that wrong. September 12th is when they send it out. It's the 11th of every month. So it goes to midnight on the 10th. The 11th is when the email goes out, and the email is going to go to the individual that is identified as the Mailer Verification Assessment Evaluator, the VAE, and that's the person that's associated with the eDoc submitter. So whoever submits the electronic documentation is going to get an email from the Postal Service on the 11th of every month. In this case, it happened on September 12th to test the system. Had a little bit of a problem with the testing on that, so they're going to be going through and fixing that, which the Postal Service has assured me they have found the problem with that, and they're going to be well prepared for the emails. But they're going to go ahead and send those out. Now, the point of this slide here, and you'll notice the Rockstar resource, the USPS RIBS website posts this every month. It's a measurement of how well the industry is doing. So the Postal Service is looking across the country to see how well mailers are doing relative to the various categories and the tolerances for potential. As you can see, green is good. The industry is 100% in a couple of cases, upper 90s. Still got an issue with the full service data availability, as you can see there, 69.5%. So not quite up to the 95% threshold the Postal Service is looking at. But by and large, if you could see this whole spreadsheet, and you're welcome to download it with that link as we're indicating on the screen, you can see how well everybody's doing. And this represents the results through August. So we've been watching this. Task Team 23 has been watching this. We are ready. I do believe that we're ready. The question is are you, as an individual company, ready for not only the tolerances, but everything that the scorecard means for your business? And quite simply, are you ready to rock that scorecard and take it to a new level for your customers? So I touched on this a little bit before, but again, just to set the context, why is the Postal Service doing this? A couple reasons. First of all, they got to reduce costs. They have been right-sizing their network for quite some time. They've kind of on hold a little bit, making some tweaks and adjustments. We do expect that they'll continue to move in that methodology probably at the beginning of the year as they can demonstrate that they're able to have a stabilized performance measurement process with that. But that's all about having the Postal Service set to the right size based on mail volume. You're only going to be able to cut so much until you finally have to start looking at new places. And this is one area where the Postal Service sees an opportunity to reduce their costs, and that is mail acceptance. rather than having clerks, human beings, taking out a sample of the mail pieces and running it on a Merlin machine or doing whatever processes that they need to do that can be very time consuming and arguably aren't quite as accurate as maybe the Postal Service would like, they're going to go to a census verification instead of the sample verification. So they want to reduce the cost, and they're going to leverage the full service IMB to do that, the Intelligent Mail Barcode. Now, in leveraging the full service IMB, that's going to save the Postal Service money, but the idea is also to improve the speed and efficiency for the Postal Service to accept your mail and get it processed into the system. So by reducing the amount of time that it takes for a clerk to sample the mailing and look at that, this should improve mail acceptance, get that mail handled and inducted quickly and processed through there to meet the service performance and measurement, simplifying the drop shipment. But what it also does is it shifts the opportunity for you to rework the mail. In a census-based verification or a post-induction verification process, you will not have the opportunity to take back the mailing to rework it. So that's why it's really imperative that you approach this whole new world with the Mailer Scorecard and everything about that, hence the purpose of today's webinar, to begin to think, how is my business going to be prepared for this? The Postal Service is insulating themselves from risk. They're making sure that they're capturing all the mail. They need to be compliant with the law, okay? So they're going to say that, hey, did you pay for the postage or not? If they find that there's an issue with acceptance or there's an issue with the mail preparation part of that, that's where an assessment's going to come into play. Initially, it's going to be the full service IMB discount that's at risk, which is what we're seeing now. But as we turn the corner to next year, folks, it's going to continue to expand things like move update, documented pieces, and a whole host of other things, including secondary addresses on parcels. That's another area that the Postal Service is looking at, having assessments with that. So we need to understand as an industry, how does this affect our situation so that we can be well prepared with that. It all comes down to understanding, again, the roadmap, and I mentioned before, we've got a mail entry roadmap guide. It's something that summarizes that 187-page document and just gives you really a good, quick view of what you need to know, and we've got that available for you to download with that link that you see on the screen. All right, we're now ready to talk about some tips. We've got 3 rockstar tips for you, ways that you can successfully improve your Mailer Scorecard, better insulate your company, your position in the mail supply chain so that you're well prepared to handle any assessments that may come out of this. So we're going to start with rockstar tip number 1, track your permit numbers. You want to keep very close track of the permit numbers, your MID, and the serial numbers that you're using to uniquely identify your full service IMB pieces. It's a 45-day window that you have to have unique piece and container barcodes on that. That uniqueness is defined as the MID or mailer ID plus a serial number. So it's really important that you leverage your software technology. In the case if you're using BCC software, we make it very easy with the ability to automatically help you in that. But set up your processes internally so that you know where your serial numbers are beginning and ending for a particular mailing, and make sure you know who is using your mailer ID so you can keep a close watch on that. I've already had a couple of customers that have come to me having an issue with undocumented numbers, and it turns out that their MID was being used by somebody else. So you got to be careful on that. And again, it could just be an innocent mistake. They typed in the wrong number with that, but you really got to watch this. So whoever is identified, and I mentioned the name before, that the VAE, the Verification Assessment Evaluator person that's associated with that MID, that should be one of their number 1 jobs, is to keep a very close eye on that. Look for the continuity in a mailing. I mentioned undocumented. We're still working, we being MTAC and the Postal Service, still working on how we're going to handle undocumented pieces. Quite simply, an undocumented piece is a full service IMB that gets scanned by a mail processing equipment piece by the Postal Service, but when they go to look into Postal 1, they can't find the correlating electronic documentation. So in effect, you've got a piece of mail in the system that you don't know has it really been paid for yet. That's a revenue assurance issue for the Postal Service, and it calls into question their ability to comply with Sarbanes-Oxley, or the SOX requirement that was put in place in the 2006 law, the Postal Accountability Enhancement Act. So you want to make sure you understand the continuity in the mailing so that if there is an issue when the Postal Service looks at what's called bookending, they know they can see the beginning of one serial number, the ending of another serial number, and does this undocumented piece fall somewhere in between, and if it does, well, then it must be the same part of that same mailing or something, and then they'll start to dig through it. So you want to make sure you understand any gaps in that so that you're better prepared to answer any questions about undocumented. Here's the insider tip, and this is something that I want to share. Each one of these Rockstar tips is going to have this. The insider tip has to do with the buy-for relationship. Remember, part of what EDOC is doing in this change to full-service IMB is the Postal Service wants to understand the supply chain of who's preparing mailings. So understanding who the mailing is for and who it was prepared by helps the Postal Service understand the relationship in the supply chain. It's important for them to know that so they know who to contact if there's an issue for an assessment or things like that. And that's why you need to really set that up properly. But there are some circumstances or situations where the buy is the same as the for. This mailing was prepared by this individual for that same individual. So you want to notify the Postal Service in advance by contacting the Postal One help desk or the numbers that the Postal Service makes available for the scorecard as we're going through with this. Some industry alerts have gone out, and so they're urging you to do this. Contact Postal One in advance saying this next mailing, and you can identify how that's going to be. This is going to be done with the preparer as the owner. So the buy-for is going to look like that. So you aren't flagged for that because that would be an error for the Postal Service. Okay, Rockstar tip number 2, clean all the data. So BCC has had a long history, and I myself have spent quite a bit of time in address quality within MTAC and other venues, and I can tell you that good data is essential for mail preparation. It's that old adage, right? Garbage in, garbage out. So if you're not preparing your data and cleaning it all correctly, you're going to have an issue. Bad addresses need to be removed, and that data needs to go back up the funnel to the list holder. So let's talk a little bit about move update. One of the clarifications for move update recently from the Postal Service, in addition to saying that, well, we're not going to measure move left no address or box closed no order or foreign moves, those 3 items, they clarified that part of it in a Federal Register notice, but in that same Federal Register notice, they said, as a reminder, you as a service provider, for example, you are responsible for making sure that that new change of address that you found using NCOA link, for example, that you applied to that mail piece, you notified the list owner of what that new address was, because that list owner needs to update their database. And here's what's going to happen, because the Postal Service is looking at all these mail pieces as they're going through. They're going to see, I told you once, I told you twice, I told you 3 times, and there's going to reach a point where the Postal Service is going to say, I have warned you time and again. I'm kind of paraphrasing this Federal Register notice, but I've warned you time and again on this that this new address has to be applied. You didn't apply it, and now you're going to get assessed as a move update issue with that. So they have stated that in that Federal Register notice, and that was a final ruling with that. So you really do need to make sure that as you're applying change of addresses, they get funneled backwards up to the mail owner so that they can take advantage of that. And at the end of the day, when you think about it, we want good, clean data, because the only way for a timely, predictable, and ultimate delivery of that mail piece is with a complete, correct, and current address. So leverage those technologies that we have, because those postage assessments can occur on mailings claiming automation rates that fail to meet those thresholds. So here's your insider tip. Leverage the return codes. These are the footnote codes, the return codes that come out of CAS, SweetLink, DPV, LaxLink, and of course NCOA as the change of address. Take advantage of those codes. The software's talking. Make sure you're listening, and leverage those codes to make the next best right decision in correcting the address for that mailing and then getting that new information back up to the owner or the custodian of that. Now, to help you with that, your Rockstar resources to download BCC Software's NCOA link return code guide at the link that you see there. That return code guide is going to give you important clues to tell you if you get this footnote code or this return code, and you will receive that as part of the software or the service provider you're working with. If you're working with BCC, it's going to come right back to you. You'll be able to leverage that, and hopefully your technology that you're working with has a nice, easy way to be able to filter out or separate those addresses that need additional data scrubbing or data cleansing, or you become like that data detective, right? You get in real deep and you figure out what's wrong with that address and you resolve that. There's a great filter option in Mail Manager from BCC that helps you to really do that. But check with your software provider so you can understand how to leverage those return codes. And again, to help you with that, we've got that quick guide. So please do listen to your software because it is talking to you and it wants to help you improve your address quality. All right, at this point, we're going to pause for another survey. So let's bring up the next survey here, John, and we're going to take a look at that. As we bring this up, there it is. All right, I see it on the screen. I was looking at a different screen. So let me explain what we're looking for here. As I mentioned before, these assessments are going to be occurring by the Postal Service. They have stated that it is the e-doc submitter that's going to receive the email with the assessments. Folks, if you're a service provider, that means you're going to get an invoice from the Postal Service for a mailing that took place a month ago. Maybe it's already been delivered in home, okay? So the question quite simply is, how are you going to deal with that? Are you going to pass that cost on to your customer and say, hey, you have to pay me for this assessment for the mailing I did a month ago? No, I'm just going to take the assessment. I'll just have to pay for it and figure out a way to budget in advance for assessments. Maybe you're not sure how you've dealt with this, or this might be new information to you, or you're going to handle it situationally. Maybe for some customers, you'll just eat the assessments. Some you're going to pass it on. I even wondered if we're going to end up seeing postage insurance in the future on how we're going to handle this. So looking at the results here, I see 43% are saying they're going to handle that situationally, and that probably makes sense. Each customer is a little bit different. Maybe you've got that large customer that you do regular business with. You want to keep that account. Whereas if it's a new customer, not sure how you're going to handle that, and you have to work on that. I see 20%, about even 20% going to pass that along. 20% haven't, not really sure yet. So, all right, I appreciate you sharing that. Let's talk about going on beyond compliance. When we were talking internally here at BCC, and in fact, even in some settings at MTAC and in the industry, in looking at the scorecard, at census-based verification, at this really fundamental, I mean, if you pause for a moment, this is a fundamental change to the industry. We're talking about accessorial charges from the Postal Service. If you're in transportation, that's really what we're talking about. Invoices after the fact to the delivery company I'm working with, in this case, the United States Postal Service. And so, it really had a fundamental change. 10 years ago, we had a fundamental change as well. NCOA was made available, NCOA Link, and Standard Mail had to adhere to a move update compliance. We had DPV and all the stuff started rolling out. And at the time, I was the industry leader for address quality at MTAC, and so I was really watching all this technology come to bear and talking to the industry and listening to the industry at large. And initially, there was this approach of, well, we're only going to do DPV if the customer really asks for it, or LaxLink if the customer asks for it, or NCOA if the customer asks for it. I'm not going to do anything extra. I'm just going to check the box at, just a bare minimum. And what I found is that the industry really realized that that's maybe not the best case. Instead, if I NCOA link every single job that comes into my operation, one, I've insulated myself from the potential of move update compliance issue. I've improved the relationship in terms of the historical acceptance with the Postal Service. And three, I've improved the value of the mailing for my customer. Better address quality means better address delivery, better return on investment of the mailing. I think we're at that same point, folks. I think the scorecard is an opportunity for us not to take necessarily a defensive position, but an offensive position. CAS software, CAS certification software can only go so far. It's very limited. The Postal Service only can do so much with the CAS products. And when I say CAS, I'm talking DPP and the LaxLink and SweetLink and things like that with that. They can only go so far with it. The law restricts the Postal Service from things like telling you the apartment number where a resident lives at. They can't do that. They can't, add different elements to it. They can't correct primary address information and things like that. Fortunately, there are industry-provided solutions that can, though. So data that's sourced from other places than the Postal Service can be complemented with postal source data, and that gives you a broader, better result in address quality. So here's your insider tip. Make more money per job and improve your return on investment by including address resolution service, or going beyond CAS software. by leveraging an address resolution service. And you may have heard something like the Post Service talk about their address element correction, their AEC service. That kind of falls in that same camp. What can you do that goes beyond CAS, the CAS certification process, which is very restrictive, so that the Post Service can comply with Title 39, Section 412, and the Privacy Act of 1974. There's other ways that you can complement and enhance that address quality. So to help you with that as a rockstar resource, look at BCC Software's ARS ROI tool, and that will give you an idea of how to look at the improvement in address quality that you could see by going beyond CAS, by leveraging an address resolution service to correct more 5-digit zip codes, to get a zip+4, to get an apartment append, to fix a primary address, to resolve the problems that you have with that, because every incremental zip+4 you get multiplies the return on investment to substantial improvements. Let's take a look at what I'm talking about on the next screen here. So what is ARS? And again, whether you're working with the address element correction with the Post Service, or maybe there's some other solution out there, generally speaking, they're about the same. We're pretty proud of what we've done with our ARS solution here at BCC, because it really goes way beyond what CAS can provide for you and gets you that better postage discount, a better opportunity. So, John Doe, 312 Main Street, Rochester, New York, 14607. That's my input address. On the surface, of course, as you know, it looks like a good address, but it's not until we begin to do our data detective work that we find there are in fact, problems with that. CAS-only software will tell me, hey, Main Street only runs from 100 to 300, so 312 can't exist, and that's not a valid address. So we're only going to give you the 5-digit zip. You're only going to get what came in from that address. So that means no automation rates, no full-service IMV, no opportunity for discounts, and you're probably going to get a lower delivery result because of that. And oh, by the way, if John Doe moved, I cannot match to the NCOA product. I need 9-digit zips to match to the NCOA link product. So I've really cut off the opportunity to get a timely, predictable, or alternate delivery to John Doe. And if John moves, that's it. I probably lost all contact with him if I only use my CAS certified software. But if I leverage the ARS solution, what do I find out? I find out that looking at through the proprietary data that John Doe does in fact live on West Main Street, or on Main Street. In fact, he lives on the west part of Main Street, and he's really in building number 123, which, by the way, happens to be a high-rise building. John lives in an apartment. He's in apartment 4, okay? And because of that, now I get a full 9-digit zip code. I get the automation rates. I get a better delivery probability. John's mail isn't going to be thrown away if it's standard mail, and because it's not the default high-rise, I'm giving the exact apartment number, it's not sitting on a table in the lobby of the building for the default high-rise. I get it right into the box where John wants it to have. It's a better address quality, contributes to a cleaner scorecard, and here's the bonus, folks. If John Doe received a catalog, for example, and we corrected that for that standard mail piece that went out, and let's say it's a catalog for some outdoor clothing or something like that. John lives in a cold place like me in northern Minnesota, right? And so he gets a sweater for those 10 months out of the year when he's got to wear it because it snows. John can order the sweater, have it shipped to his house. Because I've got the apartment number on there, then I won't be facing a potential 20-cent per package penalty that is planned to go into effect next year. So I'm really laying the groundwork for a cleaner scorecard, better address quality, better customer experience, and I'm helping the return on investment for my customer with the ARS solution. So a company that really understands the value of address quality, particularly of the ARS solution, and has been a leader in leveraging the tools and technologies to improve mail value for their customers and rock their scorecard, is DX Marketing. And I'm really pleased to have John Benito here with us to talk about how they're using ARS and how they're pulling all these tools together to rock their scorecard and help improve the value of the mail for their customers. John, welcome to the webinar.
Thank you very much for having me. Address resolution has expanded our deliverability unbelievably. One of the great things about it is that it really does go past what your CAS certification software can do for you. For example, most of you know that when the Postal Service is coding addresses, there is a street record, and then if that street record has multiple delivery points in it, then there is a high-rise code added to that. So if you're processing a list through your zip+4 software, you need to go a little bit further and do a selection set and look at the delivery points that equal 99, but the delivery address does not contain 99. There's a high probability that those are addresses that are missing a secondary address element, such as a suite number or apartment number, floor number, unit number. Those are the ones that you really want to target. And address resolution, because it does access databases that are not associated with the Postal Service, gives you a remarkable return on those. I think the average is about 51%. We have seen up to 75% on some lists that we have processed.
Wow, John, I'm going to jump in here. So I want to jump in here real quick, John. I want to underscore that point. You're right, the 51%, we're going to talk about that from an average. So I want to make sure our listeners understand. So you're saying out of the addresses that you send to us, 75% are able to get a zip +4 that we're sending back to you?
We have absolutely. It already had a zip +4. It did not have a correct delivery point because it was missing a secondary address element. And you are absolutely right. We have seen a 75% return on some of our lists that do now have an apartment or a suite number appended to it, which obviously increases the deliverability of the mail piece. One of the things that we are very good at is backdoor analytics after the mailing. And so we stress to our clients that if we're going to analyze the mailing and to see how successful that campaign was, we have got to do everything we can to get their message to their target audience. And this is the way to do it. You have to go that one step further to find out what those apartment or suite numbers are, or in the example on the slide before where the numbers were transposed, not only did it correct those primary numbers, it then appended the secondary address element. Our deliverability has increased unbelievably because of address resolution.
Well, John, that is fantastic news. You know, you mentioned suite numbers, and I want to underscore for our listeners, too, that there is a SuiteLink product, of course. It's part of our CAS-certified software, and that is designed to assist with business secondary addresses, the suite number for a particular business, but it's only limited to those companies that have reported themselves as a business to the U.S. Postal Service, and through the very tight methodology that we're able to find an exact match for that business. But there is no, and just, again, validating with you, John, I'm not aware of any apartment append or an apartment link product from the Postal Service. You worked at the Postal Service for quite a while. They don't have one, right?
You're absolutely correct, yeah. The Postal Service, their hands are tied in a lot of things, and one of them is that they cannot maintain address lists, for example, that John Doe lives at 123 Main Street. Obviously, they have all the addresses in their database, but they're not allowed to give those out or to share those in any way. So address resolution is a way to get around that. It's basically an enhanced version of the other CAS softwares. This goes one step further in helping you create good addresses.
So, John, how do you sell this to your customers? I mean, I can imagine it might be a little bit difficult to maybe explain to customers. In fact, thinking back 10 years ago or more, just talking about address quality seemed to be difficult because everyone always assumes, well, my address is good, and we saw the example on the screen there. It's hard to tell it's a good or a bad address without really digging into that data technology. Can you walk us through an example of how you have a conversation with your customer about the value that you're discussing?
Absolutely. We do it on a couple bases. One is we sit down with the client and try to explain the cost of designing the piece, producing the piece, mailing the piece, and if it's not getting to its recipient, because as most of you know, misaddressed piece of pre-sort standard mail is disposed of by the Postal Service. It's not forwarded on unless it has an endorsement, and those are pretty costly. So we try to explain to them, let's do housekeeping up front so that we're getting the biggest bang for their buck in producing this piece. The other way is we have a particular client who obtains their addresses from a point of sales terminal all across the country. And they inherently are missing that secondary address element. So we'll run it through Zip4 to clean up everything and see what we've got. And then I look at those delivery points that are 99, but yet 99 is not the last two numbers of the numeric part of the delivery address. And we sit down with the client and say, there is a huge chance that most of these 99 delivery points are in fact missing a secondary address element. So it's in black and white, it's in front of them. When we say address resolution, we're going to get a large amount of those corrected. So now your message is actually getting to the person that you were targeting.
So John, the process of implementing ARS, I mean, it's on the slide here, right? It all sounds good. The customer seems to understand it, but I mean, how complicated is it to fit that as an extra step in your process?
It is absolutely nothing. It's basically, it's like assigning track and trace numbers or any of the other products. It takes a matter of a minute to actually do it. And the good part of it is, if you're processing a list of 100,000 addresses, it will only send those addresses that are missing those elements through the address resolution software. So you're not paying for all 100,000 of the addresses you're sending through. You're only paying for those that are appropriate. And the software even tells you how many it is about to send before you actually hit the submit button. And the turnaround time is remarkable. Usually, depending on the size of the list, obviously, but it's a matter of minutes. If it's a huge list, it may take 30 minutes, but the turnaround time is remarkable.
Oh, that's great. Well, I'm glad to hear that that my team is living up to the expectations that we have. We certainly want a quick turnaround on that, and glad to hear that. So let me talk a little bit about the scorecard here, John. Has DX Marketing been looking at your scorecard, and have you taken any steps to prepare for this big change?
We have, but we have been looking at our scorecard for a very long time, long before talk of the assessments came. When I came on board, we got into Postal One, set up our mids and crids for ourselves and all of our customers, and started looking at the scorecard to see where we were missing opportunities. Right now, I'm really proud to say our scorecard is remarkable. We've had a couple by for errors, but I have corrected those. Those are very easy to correct. You just got to make sure that the mid-crid for the permit holder and the mid-crid for the mail preparer or the mail owner are not the same, and that's an easy solution. So yeah, we have been looking at our scorecard on a regular basis. I look at it at least once a week, and depending on our production schedule, if we're really busy, I will look at it 2 or 3 times a week. So you really do want to take a good look at it on a regular basis.
So it just really underscores the importance of being proactive with that. John, are you considered the verification assessment evaluator for DX Marketing?
I am pretty much the postal liaison. I have 26 years with the Postal Service before I retired. Yeah. And so I have a very good working relationship with our local BMEU. Right. I know how mail flows. I know the verification process. So most questions do come by my desk before we go into production with something.
That makes sense. That makes sense. We asked earlier in the webinar, John, about invoices, and certainly with the progressive approach you've taken with this, DX Marketing being a leader for, just generally speaking, prior to any scorecard. I mean, you folks have just been really phenomenal in your approach to serving your customers. But in the event that a scorecard issue does come up, have you talked about how you might handle that in the same context of the survey question we asked earlier?
We have had conversations concerning this, and right now we're probably going to look at it on a case-by-case basis.
Right.
You can actually get into your scorecard and drill down, and you can actually find out what mid or crid caused an error on your scorecard. So we're probably going to take a look at that. We feel very confident, though, that we're not going to have any assessments because we have a proactive approach to this. We really are looking at our data but long before it goes into production. But if we do have an assessment, which I hope is going to be rare, we're probably going to look at it on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, excellent. Well, John, thank you very much. Any final comments from you before we move on to the final parts of the presentation?
I just think you guys do a great job. You have some great products, and you are so correct. Everybody needs to get on board because these assessments are coming.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, John. I appreciate your business and your time here on the web seminar. Yeah, folks, you know, this webinar today was really meant to get that thought process going, get a conversation started, a conversation internally started about how you want to look at the scorecard, understand the scorecard, figure out who's going to be that verification assessment evaluator person, the one that's going to get the email. You know, take a tip from John there. Get in on that early. Really start looking at it. Don't wait till the end of the month when it's too late. Look at that thing every single day, because once it tips the level, right? Once that cart tips, you know, you're doing all this address quality, for example, the move update, you're tracking pretty good on that, and then just that one job sneaks in where somebody decided to throw a couple hundred addresses on there that they got from who knows where, right? And now you've tipped the apple cart and you got a problem. So you want to stay proactive on that. You want to track the rework, as I said before, for Rockstar tip number 1. Look at those serial numbers. Keep those unique. Clean all the data, right? So I'll leverage all the tools that you have available. Look at those return codes. Your software's talking. Are you listening? Take advantage of that. And then 3, go beyond compliance. Let's take a page from what we did 10 years ago, folks. Get a progressive approach to address quality. Leverage a solution like the ARS technology, which is faster than what the Post Service's return time is, gives you apartment numbers that they can't. John shared with us a 75%. That's fantastic. And again, the price is better than the Postal Service. So take advantage of these services and solutions and work with your software provider. Contact BCC Software if you're interested in looking at our services and solutions to help you with that. And Sean, as I transition this over to you, we've got a special offer that helps you take advantage of all 3 of these Rockstar tips.
We do, and thank you to both of you. I want to let folks know as I talk about this special webinar offer we have, you do not need to be using our Mail Manager software to take advantage of this. Of course, if you are a Mail Manager customer, it's very tightly integrated into your software, and you heard John indicate the way that works for him, and he just sort of hits the button and waits a couple of minutes, and back it comes, and it's all nicely integrated. But if you are using a different software product, A, we'd love to have you as part of the Mail Manager family. But B, of course, you're welcome to send us those lists and take advantage of this offer. And as a blended average across the board, we pick up a 51% match rate on addresses that CAS wasn't able to pick up. And if you can imagine the impact on just mailing those to your scorecard versus cleaning half of them up, it's pretty substantial. So if you'd like to take advantage of that, email us at marketing@bccsoftware.com or reply to the email we're going to send at the end of the week with the webinar recording along with those Rockstar resources, and we'll help you get started and run that first job through. Save half, and I think you'll find a pretty big benefit from that. So as I get ready to ask the first couple of questions here, I want to also bring into the fold Douglas Gill, who is from our support department here, and like every person in our support department, he's located right in the main office with us in Rochester, and is a Mailpiece Design Certified Professional. Welcome, Douglas.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to jump right in, so you may hear from Chris, Douglas. We may refer back to John, depending on the questions. Let's take a look. Will move update errors above the threshold be assessed beginning in November? And if so, what is the amount of assessment per piece?
Great question. So no, move update assessment is not going to be part of this initial part. That is right now targeted for next year. And the reason is that it has a rate implication with the Postal Service, so they have to wait until a rate adjustment. They are raising rates in 2017, so no surprise there, I think, for a lot of you. In fact, they've already shared with us what the structural changes are for that, but they haven't told us what the individual numbers are to put in the box. But they have suggested on changing to a census-based move update verification, 0.5% tolerance. Today you have a 30% tolerance in the sample verification. We're going to go to 0.5% for census verification. So a very, very small window on that. If you're applying NCOA link on a regular basis, if you're leveraging the return codes, if you're making sure those addresses go back upstream to the source, you shouldn't have anything to worry about. But if it does tip the card, as I said before, then right now unless the Postal Service changes the price, because that's all part of their price adjustments for next year, you're looking at a 7-cent per piece assessment that would be applied. So it's not right now, but it's around the corner, folks. So that's why we want to make sure you understand your scorecard now and rock it while you can, so that you don't have any issues as you roll into January.
So we have someone who's not currently using eDoc, and they're submitting paper. They want to know how long they can keep doing it.
Well, right now, I mean, there's no deadline to force you to full service IMB, right, Douglas? I mean, that's
nothing I've heard of, no.
Yeah, and I haven't seen anything either. As you recall, the Postal Service attempted requiring full service IMB for automation mailing. The PRC came back. They didn't say they couldn't do it, but what they said is that if you do that, Postal Service, then we have to factor in how much it will cost the industry to be prepared to do full service IMB, and thus that cost factors into your price cap adjustment. So in effect, it put the Postal Service in a weird situation to try and look at the numbers. They made numerous appeals to the federal courts to try and overturn that decision, but were not able to do that. So that's why for the last 2 years, Douglas, right? It's been about 2 years. For about 2 years, the Postal Service has been trying to encourage people to do full service IMB because they want you to understand the benefits of that. So they've been trying to push us as an industry towards that. We're at just about 90% of all mail volume is full service IMB. So we're just about there, and who knows, that extra 10% or whatever, if you look at the numbers and do the math, it may be that there's enough room in the price cap to be able to require that, but they have not come out and said that yet.
So, Douglas, maybe I'll start with you on this one. And it's specifically about return codes. And as a reminder, one of the resources we'll be sending out is a guide that helps break down the return codes and some recommendations on what to do with those. But which at-mailer's discretion codes from NCOA, and they list some examples here, but I know you're familiar with them, should we suppress, or should they suppress all of them, some of them? Can you give maybe just a quick, without breaking them all down, just a minute or two on some thoughts there?
As far as what might reflect on the scorecard, any of the ones that indicate that a +4 match could not be made, those are not really going to affect your scorecard primarily as far as getting dings or hits. NCOA return codes are going to be more along the lines of addresses that you were flagged with, as Chris mentioned, that are updated, but you're not actually making the changes in your data. Return code 23 error in primary, things like that where they know the person has moved. I know that they just had the notification that they're not going to be flagging you against like moves out of the country and the post office box closed. But you still should be cleansing those from your data. And particularly return codes 36, 37, and 38 where the person has moved, those need to be sent back up so that your primary database is being cleansed. So that's primarily, I think, what the post office is really looking at as far as return codes that could potentially hit your scorecard.
Agreed.
So are only full service automation records subject to scorecard review, and would straight first class stamp and DSHA non-barcodes be not subject to scorecard review? What about residual non-automation for full service mailing?
Great question. So right now, the only assessment that's being questioned or looked at is full service IMB and the discount associated with full service IMB. So that's what's at stake. So if you're doing single piece mailings, stamps, or you're doing non-automation, that would not be part of this initial approach. But let's be clear, right? The Postal Service is beginning a process, and that's really why we wanted to do today's webinar. It's the beginning, folks, of a very fundamental change for the industry. The Postal Service is going to be leveraging their processing equipment. They're going to be looking at the mail pieces. Today, they're going to leverage the full service IMV because the barcode's there, they can look at it, they've got the eDoc to support it. But we are actively discussing at MTAC and other venues, how can we start to bring in the non-automation pieces into this? The Postal Service, you may have heard, they did something about this mail delivery app, right? They said what was called real mail notification at one point, where they were scanning the entire surface of the mail piece and sending emails out, notifications out to people. It's sort of a whole different conversation, really. But what that pilot did is it demonstrated that the Postal Service has the ability to widen the field of view of their cameras on this postal equipment and look at the entire mail piece. That means it could look at the non-automation pieces and begin to have a conversation about how that might be brought into this. So the short answer is it's only full service IMV pieces, only the full service discount that's at risk, but it's the beginning, folks. It's the beginning of the Postal Service reducing costs in acceptance. And so we want you to be fully prepared and begin to have that conversation internally and with your customers so that you're not shocked later on.
All right, thanks. We've got just over 5 minutes left. I've got a couple more questions left. Chris, could you maybe give us a quick 30-second reminder on what seamless acceptance is?
Seamless acceptance is a program whereby the Postal Service basically just takes your mail. It's effectively, they look at the history of how you've been mailing. They look at how you've been preparing your process. And it's basically just blindly accepting your mail. They'll still look at, at the mail pieces as it goes through for census verification, but you sort of reached a level. You're kind of at that elite mailer level with the Postal Service. What's in it for you? Faster acceptance, mail acceptance, more favorable times and locations to be able to induct your mail. It really is a way to leverage the data and take additional costs both in your processing part as well as the Postal Service with that. They've been pilot testing this in a couple of mailing places. Some of our customers have been very heavily involved in this and have been enjoying some of the benefits of the improved acceptance with it. But the Postal Service has not formally rolled this out to everybody yet, but they're very close to beginning to open that up again and have other people start to come on board once you hit 75% or higher in your Postal Service IMV.
The basic process once you're actually on the seamless acceptance, if I understand right, is eDoc gives you a certification page with a barcode on it, and then your driver would take that, they would scan the barcode, and that would be it.
Yeah, think about it like the fast lane at the airport. Right? I've got status, I'm going to get right in on the plane and get the preferred seat where I want to get a better experience.
All right. So if anybody here is looking to win some postal trivia, here comes one for Chris. Somebody heard you say the post office has all the correct addresses, but can't tip into those, and I know you're going to reference the law off the top of your head. But why not, wouldn't it make things easier if the post office helps with that? So really they're asking, why do we have to turn to a service like ARS from us that's industry source versus going directly to the Postal Service?
Well, I don't have my postal law book with me. It's back in my office, but I will tell you that the specific part of it is Title 39, Section 412. And what that basically says is that the Postal Service is restricted from being able to rent lists. They cannot provide lists of names and addresses for people to be able to use. So, if you ever wonder about it, and you're absolutely right, they have the master database, right? In fact, that's what the DSF product is. That BCC software is one of the select companies that have a direct license with the Postal Service for the DSF data. It is a master delivery database. But because of Title 39, Section 412, it's very restrictive as to what they can do with it. Does the Postal Service know that there's different apartment numbers? Sure they do. But the law restricts them from being able to only correct the information you already have. They can't give you something new on the address you didn't have. So you have the 5-digit zip, okay, but you already have that, right? So they're going to help you get the zip +4 with that, all right? But they can't give you the apartment number for the residence because it violates that Section 412 of Title 39, and arguably it starts to bleed into the Privacy Act of 1974, which is more applicable to the move update requirement, because when you add somebody's name to the address, particularly an individual or a family's name to the address, you added a whole new level of privacy that this country is very sensitive to. We're very, very sensitive, particularly nowadays, on privacy of the citizens of the country. And so the Postal Service, as a quasi-government entity, has to be compliant with the law. Now, how can BCC do this? We're leveraging data from several industry-provided partners So where do they source that data? If you filled out a warranty registration card, if you filled out a magazine subscription, if you're communicating with somebody and providing your name and address voluntarily, all that fine print that's in 4-point font, right? That kind of stuff in there. There's clauses in there that say that information is being made available to better communicate. And so that really represents an opportunity to look and see what is it. But again, to be clear, we're using the proprietary information to complement the CAS software, because at the end of the day, we still want to use that trusted postal data.
Pretty good for not having your postal logbook in front of you. So what about addresses that customers give us with a street address as well as a P.O. box? Should we include both, and which is preferable?
Douglas, you want to grab that one first? P.O. box is preferred.
P.O. box is preferred, yeah, because generally anyone who has a P.O. box, that's where they're picking up their mail.
Right. You're paid for. You paid for the P.O. box. That's the purpose of the box.
That's what should be put primarily in your delivery address field of the software.
Yep.
In order for it to handle it correctly and pick up correctly.
And remind me if I'm right on this, because you're the one that's certified. So the P.O. box goes underneath the delivery. So if I'm reading it from top to bottom, right, Chris Lien's on the first line, my physical address is the next one, my P.O. box is the third one, and then my city state zip on the bottom. Right? Because the equipment reads right to left, bottom to top.
Correct.
So that's the way I want to present it on there. So you can put the P.O. box and the physical address if you want, right? But make sure they're in that right order. Again, your software should do that for you. If you're running BCC software, you're already set. But you've got both of those options. I know we've been asked before, and I have, and it goes back to my last answer, Sean. I won't open up the logbook again, but that P.O. box, you can't. If I have the address, the Post Service isn't going to tell me what P.O. box goes with that person. So don't have a P.O. box linked for us.
Time for just one more quick one. We've just got a minute or so left, but can you confirm that the only current assessment would be the loss of the full service discount, or is it more than that?
That's just the full service discount today. But again, as we roll into next year, the move update is going to be applied to that. And we're going to bring in undocumented pieces, and then we're going to bring in some more of the induction. So this is the beginning of a series of tightening, if you will, on mail acceptance, mail qualification, the efficacy of preparation of that. So we want you to understand the scorecard, be a good custodian of the data like John Donito is over at DX Marketing. Really look at your scorecard, understand that, get a good handle on what's happening with it, fix those issues now, and by being proactive, you can rock that scorecard and help your customer get a better mailing experience.
Very good, thank you. Yeah, so that's, as Chris points out, this is the time to get started and be proactive, get on the front edge with that scorecard, really rock it out, become the industry's next John Donito, if you've got that in you. So thank you to all of you who joined us. Keep in mind that webinar offer. We're going to be sending out, of course, the recording and the Rockstar resources. Thank you to John Donito for joining us. John, thanks again.
Thank you for having me. We enjoyed it.
We're glad to have you. And thanks to Chris and Douglas here from our team.
You bet. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate your time today, and let's rock out that scorecard together.